Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
I don't know how to start the podcast. I have so much anxiety about it. I was just sitting here like, what do I say? What do I say? I don't know how to start this. I've started way too many. We're like 300 and some episodes in, and I'm like,
you've probably started like 299.
I'm just going to start podcasts off with this. What is that? We're starting. That's it. It's happening, guys. Lock and load.
The start is always the hard part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting it off the ground.
Yeah.
Well,
Do you want to hear something?
yeah, sure.
I picked this mug today, which if people are watching us on YouTube, they can see because it made me think of you.
Turn
and
it
that
this
made
way.
me sentimental.
No, like twist.
I don't know.
Twist. We got it right here. There it is. Turtles.
Mm.
It's very sentimental. Okay, great. I picked this today. It says Scott's Tots because it makes me think of all of our wonderful times watching The Office.
Very true.
Michael Scott's quite a character. You know, Michael Scott, one of the arc points inside of The Office was his journey with Jan.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Jan, in his relationship, they had a major blowout where their relationship fell apart.
Oh,
And a big part of it is that Jan pretty consistently wanted Michael to change.
Oh, 100%.
She
Genuinely, I don't think liked who he was.
No, not at all.
Mm-mm.
She was like, "You're terrible. Be something different." And
But I'm with you. But you're terrible.
Which is very confusing. It's like, you know, this sense of like, hey, I'm willing to be with you, but I don't want to be with you.
Yeah.
I want to be with an alternate version of you.
Yeah.
Now, there's that side of stuff. And then there's the other side of experiences where couples get into a relationship and you truly choose into who the person is. But there's aspects of them that sometimes they're not willing to develop.
Mm-hmm.
I think that us as humans, if we never change, if we never evolve, if we never grow, to me, that's a sign of not being fully present with life. That's not engaging the journey that's right in front of us. And it makes sense that it's one of the number one complaint points that I've experienced inside of my office is like, I am doing all this work to grow and develop, and my partner is doing nothing.
Oh, yes.
They're the same person as when we got together.
Yes.
So today we want to have a conversation about change.
What to do if your partner is not changing, if they're not growing, if you are on this deep healing growth journey and they're like, nuh-uh, don't want to do that. Not
going to happen. Not
don't
interested in it.
Don't want to touch that. Don't want to hear about it.
Quit bothering me.
Yes.
Well, where do you want to kick this off at?
Well, I think this is one of the reasons we're doing this podcast is people will write in and give suggestions for podcast topics, which I love. Send them in. We love that.
Yeah, go to Justin and Abby, that's abi.com, and you can submit it in a form somewhere there on our Connected Life page. Or
sometimes you can do Instagram. Sometimes they get lost in Instagram.
Yeah, I get lost in Instagram.
Yeah, but anyway, this is one of the most commonly requested topics.
Yeah, what happens if my partner won't change and I'm doing all this growth?
Yeah, it's hard. And I just want to start by validating that. Like when you are in the process of transformation, it is lonely. It is hard work to grow and transform. And it's unstabilizing. Like if you think about just a growth process, if one person is moving forward and one is not, then there is natural distance that is starting to be created. And that distance is scary, honestly, for both people because you just feel less connected and in sync. I think in relationships where we feel in sync with each other and life and core values, that is where there's so much safety and ease.
And momentum.
But unfortunately, a lot of our relationships get out of alignment because one person decides to grow and maybe one person is resistant to it. I think oftentimes there are people that are run at life and face things, and then people who are avoidant, like avoid problems, avoid pain, avoid confrontation. And I think that the run at lifers and the avoiders often find each other and they end up together. And there's a truth for that. The run at lifers need a break sometimes, need to not be so hard on themselves, not always striving, not always fixing something. And the avoiders are good at that,
Yeah.
The avoiders are meant to learn how to grow more. So if we came to the middle, that's like a great place to be. But I mean, even us, we both love growth, but we grew at different paces. In different seasons.
Yeah.
And that sometimes created friction for us because there's something about being the same that feels safe to people. And when you're different, that can feel scary. And then we often do some weird behavior when we feel scared.
Yeah. I want to get into the behavior that we do when we get scared. I want to start off with going back to the Jan and Michael conversation real quick, because I know that there are going to be people that are listening to this and you genuinely feel the dissatisfaction of your partner. Like your mere existence, who you are isn't acceptable.
Yeah.
And how you express yourself. And from the get-go. And again, I've seen that so often in relationships where a person sees what they're getting into, denies the reality of that, believes that person is going to change. Like, you're going to be someone different, so it's okay. And I can make you different. And if I love you enough, you'll be different. And if I challenge you enough, you'll be different. And from the get-go, the other person on the other side of that feels the immense dissatisfaction, just kind of like bubbling up in the background. And so, for those of you that have been in those experiences, I'm really sorry that you've had those experiences. I think that this conversation is one about mutually sharing life together and not wanting to change who someone is, but the idea that, hey, I'm in a development process. You don't want to participate in a growth process. I'm just dissatisfied with you all the time and all these aspects of how you express yourself. I know that you're not coming along with me, and I don't know what to do about that because I am having an evolution process. And in that means who I am is becoming different than what you married.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, if we're even going to fit together at the end of this.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do internally if all of a sudden I'm functioning out of a way that may actually be really healthy now that you're not.
Yeah. It may not work anymore.
I was part of that system.
Yeah.
I'm not part of that system that might be very broken in the way we did it. And now, how are we even going to do this, if at all do this?
Yes.
So,
and it's hard because you have to learn a new way to relate. And you often can't figure that out while you're in the growth process because you don't even know where you guys are going to land. And it's scary. I think I want to start by just validating for both partners.
Yeah.
If you're afraid of change. So I think a lot of times people who avoid change, I want to talk about why they would avoid change.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they're scared of it. They have so much shame. They're like, I can't face myself. Like, it looks overwhelming to face it. They don't know how to feel pain. Maybe, I know a lot of people who, like, maybe they saw one of their parents was really depressed and they're like, I have to avoid all my feelings or facing things so that I don't go into that hole the way that I saw someone else. Or maybe they've experienced in their own life. I know a lot of people, I'm thinking of one client that I've worked with who went into depression when she was like in her 20s or 30s. And then for the rest of her life, to avoid the depression, ran as fast and as busy as possible, avoid feelings as much as possible because that season was so horrible for her. So and a lot of people have never experienced a safe enough place. Like, a lot of avoiders are actually really tender hearted underneath there. They feel obstinate sometimes to be around, but inside there's a real tenderness and they're so vulnerable that the way that they protect themselves is to just stay the same. And I think one other thing about avoiders is a lot of times avoiders are stuck in freeze. And freeze is a survival response that we go into in our bodies. and we don't choose to go into them, and it's not a moral decision. So a lot of times if I'm in freeze, I'm not choosing, I don't want to grow. I don't want to be with you. I don't want to face myself. Normally in freeze, I'm not making any choices. Like freeze has fully consumed me and overwhelmed me. And now I can't even think how to get out.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of avoiders are stuck in freeze so often in their relationships. And so there's this dance that happens where one partner is like wanting to talk about things, wanting to deal with things, wanting to grow, and the other person feels like they're just locking down or being stubborn. I used to think that you were really stubborn or really obstinate or really harsh or cold, but now I know you were just in freeze.
Yeah.
And so I think that a lot of times that can be a part of this. And I'm wanting to build compassion for people who are with somebody that is maybe not growing with them. Typically, they're very wounded-hearted people. If they are scared to grow, it often means they don't feel the safety in their nervous system to face the pain in their heart.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what you're talking about. So you're talking about humanizing someone who isn't on the growth and development journey at the same pace or at all, right? And there's also the aspects of learned helplessness or learned powerlessness.
Yes, I love that. I'm so glad you're bringing that up.
So there's a lot of people that's like, I would change, but I don't believe it's possible. The circumstances of my childhood told me that when all my attempts at trying to get my needs met, trying to get to healthiness, goodness, it didn't matter because the people driving the ship were drunk at the wheel.
Yes.
So to say. And it was, and so there's this sense of like, why even try? This is just how it is, which is a main statement that a lot of people who don't change say is that this is just how it is.
Absolutely.
So they're like, why change? This is just how it is. I'm just going to accept this. And they can oftentimes feel very inferior to the person who's growing and developing, not only because they may perceive the dissatisfaction that happens, like, why aren't you growing with me? Or the frustration as well, right? But they also feel this sense of like, they figured out how to do something that feels impossible for me to do, to face the pain inside. Like they're doing this thing's terrifying to me. I don't even know how to navigate that.
Yeah.
I don't have language for that. I don't think it's possible. So there can be a shame and an inferiority feeling for someone who's in those shoes. And again, I like that you're saying, let's shine some compassion on those people, because you might be listening to this and who knows, you're someone who doesn't want to change, but you found a podcast that's about change. Like, I don't know. But I want you to know that I can imagine that you're not just a piece of garbage that doesn't care.
Yeah.
That there's a reason for why you don't know how to go on that journey. And there's a timing. This is the last thing I want to say on this portion. But just because, say, Abby had a season that was right for something to come alive inside of her didn't mean it was the right timing for me. We're not the same person.
Yeah.
And there may be a timing in my own personal journey where I am like going to be awakened differently.
Yeah.
And we've had those ebbs and flows where we're awakened to a different part of our growth journey at different seasons.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it is tricky. It's hard to hold room for both of us and learning how to accept when we're in different places. Because like I said, it feels good to feel the same and it feels easier to feel the same. I want to say when I started working with people, I wasn't trauma informed.
Yeah.
And I would get very frustrated at people who felt like they were refusing to go on the journey or change, or do the work to heal, or face themselves, or face their lives, or face their partner. And I think now that I'm trauma informed, that a lot of people, like, I think stubbornness and being obstinate is a trauma response. I'm not saying it's okay, and I'm not saying it's healthy, but I often think there's trauma that is creating that wall. Yeah. Even inside of themselves, a lot of people who are refusing to go on a heart journey, it's like they've refused to even connect to themselves. So they can't connect to you. And it's because there's like so much pain behind, they've made a wall inside of themselves, and their heart is behind the wall because there's so much pain or panic or fear in there. And so the hard wall that other people feel is not always just rejection. Now, I want to give compassion for the people who are changing and feel alone in that.
Yeah.
Because I know that when I've gone on journeys to awaken, when I've realized like, oh, we have to change this, or this behavior makes me feel really unsafe. We need to change these dynamics. There's been several waves, like learning about conflict felt like a wave that we did on different times a little bit, and learning about attachment, we were on slightly different timelines, and learning about triggers, we were on slightly different timelines. And so we've had the stress of this, I think, and the panic that you feel if it feels like your partner isn't willing to change is, I am going to be trapped with something that is unsafe forever.
Yeah.
I'm going to be stuck in a situation where I'm constantly hurt and unseen or unloved forever. And the deeper fear is, who am I going to become if I stay with you and I have to protect myself forever?
Yeah.
So if I'm with somebody who won't change, and I'm like, oh, in order to survive our dynamic that you're not willing to look at, I have to put my walls up, then am I just going to become a hardened, mean person? Am I just going to become an a-hole to survive this? Or like, am I going to become like less of myself? Am I going to become depressed because I just feel like I don't get to have a voice here? Like, there's so much that is like, am I going to lose who I am because you're not willing to change? And it feels really out of control. And there's a spectrum, because there's some things like my spouse won't put his dirty clothes in the laundry. Like, that's annoying and frustrating, and you can feel really unseen and unheard. That's a part of the spectrum. And then you have like, my partner is abusive and won't change their behavior.
Yeah.
And that's another end of the spectrum. And so we're not answering. I want it to be clear that there's a spectrum, and there is different levels of how I handle different situations. So when there's lower level things that might cause big pain, but it's not actually abusive, it's
just a conflict of culture sometimes.
Yes. Culture conflicts. That's a great way, because like maybe in my culture, we keep the house clean. In your culture, you keep the house messy. And so that feels like a war over that.
Yep. Or a conflict of value systems might be also another way to kind of talk about that as well.
Yeah. I don't want to be on my phone. You are on your phone all of the times, like conflict of core values. And then you have like abusive dynamics, like the way one of partners speaking is disrespectful, or the way a partner is behaving is disruptive or controlling in a way that is abusive. And so I wanted to separate those as we talk through this.
Yeah.
So that we can kind of talk about both camps.
Yeah.
As we go.
What you're reinforcing is this is a very nuanced conversation. It is especially not black and white in it, but it is a food for thought conversation.
Yeah. Because I'm going to tell somebody in an abusive situation how to handle a partner that's not changing. That's very different than somebody who their spouse and them can't agree on how clean to keep the house.
Yeah.
It's going to be different advice. So
yeah, absolutely different.
Yeah. I think that I want to start with separation. I know that's like the extreme one, but I like starting extreme.
You're talking about removing from each other's lives separation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to start there.
Ooh.
And then we'll work our way backwards.
Start at the deep end of the pool.
Yeah. We'll start with this spectrum over here. If you're in a relationship where there's disrespect, neglect, cheating, lying, addiction, there's so many different forms, abuse, anger that is out of control, any kinds of things over there. I feel like separation is a really important tool in a relationship to say this behavior has to change or I can't stay in the relationship.
So when you talk about separation, are you talking about like limited time frame, permanent separation? Are you talking about like a
I think the
spectrum?
first start, I mean, you have to just, I like to give people a chance to change. That's my own personal commitment.
Yeah.
And so I might say, we need to separate. I'd love it if you would work on this pattern because I would love to be with you ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
And we need safety inside of our relationship for that to happen. So that would be like, and depending on, I mean, if it's too extreme of a case, just get divorced on the spectrum, but if it's something you're like, I really want to work through.
Yeah, I can work on this, but in the context of relating with you, boundary wise, I'm not safe enough to continue to stay in this exact space.
Mm-hmm.
But in an ideal world, if you overcame this, I would love to continue this relationship on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to move myself out of this space and continue to breathe over here with some requirements of you got to look at these things. You got to get some counseling.
Yeah. And I think separation is because a lot of times in a relationship where one person is growing and one person is staying the same, the person who's growing thinks the other person knows how fed up they are or how bad it is. And that's not always the case.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they can have a lot of denial or they can like not hear it, or sometimes they're not communicating as clearly as they thought they were. And so saying, we need to separate because this is such a big deal to me is a way to get somebody's attention. Hey, this isn't something that they're willing to live the rest of their lives without. This is something that has to change. It has to turn. And I think that there's a lot of people that I think if you would have separated, you wouldn't have had a divorce.
Right. If you would have taken the space, that would have kind of realigned the value systems, caused more contemplation, also given you some breathing room.
Yeah, it gives you a chance to get your nervous system safe. And it gives them a chance, and it gives you a chance to see, will they grow to meet me here? And there's some standards that we just have to have in relationships.
Yeah.
Like I have to feel safe in order to continue on in our relationship. So those kinds of things, I just think it's important to put out there as a tool. And typically when I recommend that people get separated, I recommend they have a counselor that's helping them oversee the process and helping them make communication guidelines and talking through ways to relate through it. And I just think having a third party that both people somewhat trust is really valuable in overseeing that. Guess what we just did?
What did we just do, Abby?
We created the connection cure. And I think this is the thing that I'm most excited that we've ever created for people, because it is all of the years of courses that we've made, making it available in one monthly healing membership where you get to be connected to people who are going on the same journey as you while getting access to all of the things that we have made: relationship glue, reclaiming you, the compassion project,
the Father series, Living Fully Alive, the regulation library.
Yes, we have so many things that we've created over the years. We've had over 10,000 people do our courses. We've met with over 4,000 individual clients. And now we have brought all of it together so that you could have access to all of it for less than one counseling session a month.
Yep. And what's really cool is that monthly we have live connection calls where people get together and have those connection moments, talk about what they're going through, how they're healing in their process. And that's been one of the number one things that people have said is so incredible about doing our courses is the community that they create and the healing that takes place inside of that community. I mean, we've had people find their spouses,
find their best friends, find their community, because finally there's people where they realize I'm not alone and I'm allowed to be loved right now in the messiness of my life before everything is fixed, before everything is perfect. You can belong before you have transformed. You can be loved before you're fixed in this community. And it is really rich and beautiful and healing. We're meant to heal with each other. And the whole point of why we made this is so that people could have a holistic healing pathway. We do so much with connecting to your body and actually learning how to move with your body through emotions so that things don't get buried alive in your body. the body keeps the score. We want to zero that score out. And then we have heart connection stuff where you're actually feeling empathy for yourself and others, where you're actually connecting to your own story and you're actually having time to not just learn logically about why you do what you do, but actually have new feelings towards yourself. And then we have all of the logic, the neuroscience, all of the reasons why your body and your brain do what they do so you can actually understand yourself for the first time and start to have kindness towards why your body is made to react the way it is so that you can heal. It's body, heart, and mind all together in a way that is really, really beautiful.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a really cool membership because you get to stay as long as you want or as short as you want inside of it. You're not trapped inside of it, but you have access to an incredible community and great information. And so that is coming soon. You can go to Justin and Abby, that's abi.com, and you can get on our mailing list there, and we'll let you be the first to know when we release that. But this is something we've been planning for a while now, and I'm glad we're getting to do it.
It's about to come out.
I want to make mention of like when a conversation about separation comes up, it's not meant to be a tool of control.
Yeah.
It's, hey, I want to find a way out of this. I don't have capacity to do it in our personal space because of some of the manners in which I'm experiencing you and it's impacting me. So let's try this out. It's where versus you need to change that or we are separating like this. Like I'm going to pick at you and try to figure out how I can make you do what I want.
Yeah. I think that's really good because I think we've all grown up, maybe not we've all, but a lot of people have grown up in households where their parents just threaten separation all the time to be heard or to be seen. And so these are for the issues that are like core issues that really need change, not just something to throw around as something to cause fear for your partner.
Right.
Yeah. So I also think I've seen people separate for another reason, which might be, let's say one partner isn't changing and you're recognizing that you're reacting to them all the time and you can't get out of your own reaction cycles to even try to figure out if you guys can stay together because you're so reactive. Like sometimes when pain comes up, a lot of times with women especially, they shove their feelings down over and over and over again until one day they're just screaming at them. And they're like, this thing that you've been doing for 10 years, I can't handle it. And maybe their partner's like, I didn't know it was that big, or I don't know. And so sometimes you're so reactive when you're discovering how much something has impacted you that separation can help you calm down so that you're not now adding fuel onto the fire.
Yeah. I think when it comes to conversations about separation and even the whole dialogue about change, a lot of times, like I've experienced spouses be like, I didn't even know this is where they were at.
I have too.
And then I talk to the other spouse and they're like, I was giving them signs. I'm like, what are signs?
I told them 1,000 times.
Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean 1,000 times? What like, and oftentimes the communication is you need to change this versus I'm going to tell you about the experience that I'm internally having in this relationship, the impact that's happening for me. And I want to create an invitation to see how we can sort this out. So a lot of times the spouses didn't helpfully have their other spouse come to them and be like, I can tell that I have a lot of sadness in the way that we're doing this. And I can tell that like something's happening inside of me, that the way that we're interacting has been hurting me pretty bad. I want to find solutions. Can we start a process of that? There's not those healthy exchanges where there isn't a high intense energy charge to it. It's just, why are you doing this? Stop doing this.
Yes.
Change this. I don't like this. And so it's also about like, have I brought those invitations to the table?
Yeah. And that's, again, one of the reasons that I'm like, what I wish that partners could do is before they hit the, I for sure have to divorce you point.
Yeah.
This is not talking about abuse.
Yep.
But because in abuse, just leave if you got to leave. But before I hit my explosion point down like here, if they could separate, that would give their partner time to see if they want to pivot and grow.
Yeah.
And I think that's really valuable.
And, as we're talking about what to do when your partner won't change, one of the big things going back to, if you're in self-development already, and your partner won't change, like this is what we're talking about, then you need to be self-reflective.
Yes.
Like part of it begins with, how have I shown up to this relationship? How am I collaborating? How am I co-creating inside of this space? Because a lot of these times, again, a significant other isn't changing because we're also not actually acknowledging how we've participated inside of the relationship. So I've watched, partners come in and on their high and mighty horse, I've been doing all this self-work and growth and development, and they're not doing anything. And I'm like, have you considered the way you've impacted this relationship and this self-development you've been doing? Air quotes. And they're like, I don't know. I'm like, how many times have you gone to that person and taken ownership for the pain that you've brought into it and the way that you've co-created that relationship cycle where you guys go into those explosions and stuff and you guys like become avoidant and you guys and they're like, well, I don't want to do that because that would like just affirm that they just stay the same and they do this. And I'm like, oh, but you're not owning you. Like your expression of development isn't also including my ownership that I need to take in this relational exchange. So
yeah, I think this is really important.
It's humility.
Now we're
right.
Yes.
It's a conversation of humility.
Yeah. And I'm glad that the separation was a big one. We're going back to like, what are the things that everybody, minus if you're in a really it's hard to make enough disclaimers for people. If you need to get out. That's not what we're talking about.
If you're not understanding that by now in this conversation, if we haven't said it enough, we're not the podcast for you.
I'm sorry. Like, every single video we post,
if you're too triggered out of your mind at this point, just walk away.
Yeah. But so for most people on this journey, there's a few steps to take before separation, I think.
Yeah.
And a lot of them would be, the first thing is my own personal growth. So what happens in our brains and bodies is when I'm around you and you're doing a behavior that doesn't feel good, my brain gets locked on to the threat. That's my nervous system. We're wired for war. We're wired for survival. So I start being hyper aware of every time you do something that feels like a threat to me. It could be that you interrupt me. It could be that you're checked out on your phone. It could be that I give a bid for connection and you don't respond. Whatever the threat is, my brain gets hyper fixated on that. And then oftentimes the way that we try to get safe is to resolve the external threat.
Yeah.
And so we get hyper fixated on your behavior and what you need to do instead of reflecting on what's going on inside of me and what am I doing and how can I heal and grow. And so for a lot of times it's like, okay, let's pretend this is not one of our issues, but let's say that it was, that you are always checked out on your phone. And so I might start to, that's good, babe. I love it.
What?
Oh.
Are you?
Oh, that was wet.
Spit all over yourself.
I did.
As I'm playfully acting like I'm checking out on my phone.
Okay. So let's say you're checked out on your phone and I've decided that's the threat.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't care about me anymore. You're checked out on your phone all the time. Let's say even that's true. Then there's so much self-work for me to do because then I can go, what does this trigger in me when you're checked out on your phone? What does this remind me of? Is there past pain from my childhood of not feeling like I got enough attention from my dad, of not feeling like my mom cared? Is there someone, because typically we get into relationships with someone who reminds us of our past relationship pain.
Yeah.
And so can I use this as every time that you do that as an opportunity to go bring healing to the little kid that felt unseen in that area, to like love my heart and get compassion to my heart? And so the first thing is I'm always like, if you aren't changing your behavior, how can I find out why it's hooking me?
Yeah.
Why is this feeling so unsafe to me? Then I'm going to work on that a little bit in my counseling. I'm also going to think, how do I become a healthy person and how I let you know about how you're affecting me?
Yes.
For me, I mean, this took me a few years to process. How do I share my feelings without blame?
Me too.
How do I share my feelings vulnerably? So like, this is where a lot of people will start going on their journey and they'll be like, that other person's not with me yet. And I'm like, there's a lot you can do. There's a lot of time you can take to still be growing. And one of the ways is communication style.
Yeah.
So in the past, I would have been like, you could make a passive aggressive comment. You're always on your phone. Or never mind, I don't care. You're always on your phone anyway. Or there's all the things like, I need you to get off your phone, or like throwing something at you. And then there's the like, hey, do you think that there's a time that we could go on a date that you'd be open to, like a no phone rule where we just hang out?
Let me try another one.
Uh-huh.
I really enjoy getting to spend time with you. And when we get connected, that feels really good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a space where we could spend some time where there's not interruptions like phones or media or stuff like that. But if we could remove those
even for like an hour or a half hour
or something, that would be so good for my connection with you. Like, I really enjoy you and I like experiencing you, and I like you getting to know things about me or experiencing me. So is that possible that we could do that? That's a non-demand. That's invitational. That's not me telling you that you're dumb and stupid.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's so important. And so this is, there's a lot that I felt like when there were areas that we were in different. So I started learning about triggers and the nervous system before you did. And so I remember being frustrated that you were not learning the same things as me. I've completely lost what I was going to say now.
You did?
Just got lost in my own trigger.
Probably wasn't important.
Something to do with, and when you're first becoming aware of things, you're often not great at communicating about it.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how to communicate about it with you in the beginning to lead you into a conversation about it. I didn't know how to get on the same page. And I had so much of even learning my nervous system, like how much fight, flight, freeze, and fawn I go into. So a lot of times if I'm telling you about something I want you to change in, like triggers was a big one. I wanted you to be aware of your triggers. When I'm telling you something like that in fight energy, you are then defending yourself from my fight energy.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're just being stubborn, but you're just trying to survive the fight energy that I have. And I'm in my control energy. And so a lot of times people that are on a growth process can get controlling and can get pushy.
Can they? Like just people in general? Like maybe you?
I will neither confirm nor deny that I try to make myself feel safe on the inside by externally controlling other people's beliefs and behaviors.
Yeah. And look, let's just call it what it is. Like, it makes sense that we try to control. Like, again, we want to feel safe. We feel fear. Fear doesn't make us feel safe. It's easy to default to control rather than to face the fear that's inside of us.
Yes.
And go, what is the fear that I'm having? And what is it that I can do to be powerful inside of myself to get taken care of?
Yeah.
And again, we go first externally rather than first internally. And that's one of the big things that I was consistently challenging people on when they were talking about this gap that starts developing. I'm like, how do you tackle what's inside of you? And a lot of times the fear of tackling what's inside of me is that if I'm looking at me, you'll never look at you.
Yes.
If I'm not tackling the external out here, it will never change whatsoever.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, how about you just begin with a good solid 6 months to a year of just looking at you?
Yes.
And finding your sense of power. Because the truth is, and I've found this, let me say this. I found that when a partner will actually do the deliberate self-work, they will step out of broken cyclical patterns and behavior styles, And all of a sudden, they'll see that the other partner will step into some evolution because I'm operating in love, care, kindness, gentleness, peace. I'm operating in ownership. I'm modeling it. I'm becoming a living model of something. And they're like, huh, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know you could respond that way.
Yeah. A lot of times, if someone will actually go on their own growth process for themselves, not if you do it to control the other person, you've already lost.
Yeah.
But if you're genuinely like, I want to become what I want from you. So this is one of the steps I think is become the partner you want.
Yeah.
So.
And then go out there and find them.
Become the partner you want so that, because a lot of times I want you to change, but I'm still doing things to you that I don't want you to do to me.
Yeah.
And so we have to get unhypocritical and we have to get really honest with ourselves about what behaviors we're doing. And I've seen this in so many marriages that we've worked with, but I'm thinking about even me and Pizzi, both of us hit a moment of frustration in our marriage. And it is so easy to be like, if they don't change, I'm so frustrated. And then you have you and Johnny who felt the exact same way.
Totally. We had those conversations.
Because in our, and you have to start thinking, if I haven't felt safe in this relationship for a while, or if I have things that have really been triggering me, most of us do weird stuff in our triggers. Yeah. We either get like crunchy, edgy walls or passive aggressive, or we walk away or we dissociate, or we do so many coping mechanisms when we're triggered. And so if we're in a relationship where we've been triggered for a while, odds are we are behaving towards them weird ways while they're hurting us. And we want to make it all, I want to make it all your fault. I want to be, but you did this, but I still responded like this. And so we're not saying that you're not allowed to be frustrated with somebody who's not changing. That's real. We're just saying the Serenity Prayer is one of my favorite prayers, which is give me I can never remember it.
Yeah, you should never repeat it. Every time on here, you butcher it.
It's something about
it's dyslexia.
To know that it is a dyslexic thing. Like what I actually have power to change, the courage to accept what I don't, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so the idea is, what do I actually have power to change? I always have power to change how I'm responding, how I'm showing up, how I'm dealing with my triggers, how safe I am in the relationship, how regulated my nervous system is. I always have the power to do that. And a lot of times when one person gets safer inside of themselves, the other person starts to feel it, and safety in a relationship is contagious.
Yeah, that's good. I think we're on a similar process inside of ourselves independently. For me, there are things that I felt so threatened by the way that you approached the relationship. Nah.
No, because it was all your fault.
Yeah, it was all my fault.
Yes.
And there was so many times where I wanted to live in blame, and I could justify my blame. So I'm like, this is tangibly happening. Yep. And it was like, you could do the same with me. And I remember there was a point in a conversation with my counselor where I was like, regardless of whether or not Abby changes, there is an expression of Justin that I want to become. And that's all that matters in this season. I want to become the manifestation of kindness. I want to become the manifestation of understanding and gentleness and patience and peace and all these expressions of love. Like that's what I want to be, as a tangible expression of love. And inside of that self-reflection and that personal ownership at every moment, like there would be things that you would do that were out of control, absurd. Absolutely. I'm like, this is out of control and absurd. And I'm wanting to join in on the out of control absurdness.
Like you want to respond back with out of control absurd ways.
1000%. And I did at times.
Yes, you did.
Yes, you did. We're both being validated here. But what I remember, what was getting me out of my cycles was in those moments having the flash of, but I want to be different. But I have a vision of who I want to be. And so my whole thing wasn't, I'm going to sit and stew on how she hasn't changed in these areas. I'm like, I don't know. It's not my time to consider whether or not I need to separate from her or divorce her or that I can't do this shit anymore. It's I know that I haven't landed the place that I want to land yet. And so until I cross a finish line inside of my soul that I feel is an appropriate one, I'm not going to consider the alternatives. Right now in this moment, am I able to manage myself well and show up as the expression of love I want to? Yes, great. Have I been doing that over the last 10 situations? 4 out of 10 I have. Guess I got to point the finger at me and keep going with this. Because I want to evolve. And that felt powerful inside of me. That gave me a sense of hope and purpose inside of the journey. And that made the experiences that was having with you that I didn't like, actually things that I felt almost thankful for. Like
you're challenging me to grow.
In the things that you're not doing right, you are challenging me to grow.
I like how you're just casually calling out that I did things wrong.
Slipping it in there. Nah.
Yeah. I think that this is a lot of how the frame that I did as well in our marriage was who do I want to become? And I can practice that while I'm working things out with you. Because I really did feel like, I was like, if I leave you, I'll find somebody who has the same issues.
I thought the same thing.
Or I will repeat the same cycles. Or I will show up with my bad behavior from this relationship and create more problems. So I was like, it wasn't a decision on will I stay married or not. It was literally like, for now, in my growth, I want to figure out how to break some of my own cycles. I want to figure out how to become a more safe person. Now, again, we're talking on a spectrum. So there's some things that you shouldn't stay around for to try to just become the best versions of you. But there's a lot of dynamics that this is applicable for. And the frame gives you power. I'm talking about the serenity prayer. That's reminding you, what do I actually have power over? And let's aim all of my energy in that arena. And so for me, it's, I want to become love. I want to become good at attachment. I want to become good at, one of my values was, I want to become good at feeling my pain without a lot of people, when they have pain, do not handle it well. A lot of people, when they have pain, get angry, withdraw, get passive. Like, there's so many ways that we let our pain spill out in how we treat each other. And I was like, I want to learn how to not let my pain dictate my character in relationship. And I want to learn how to be able to hold my pain and have it be safe. I kind of think about it like I don't know why I think about it this way, but like a fire hose, like pain is like a fire hose. Like water, I think of like water that's just flying everywhere. I want to learn how to hold that hose so I can be like, there's pain. That's not a good example, is that?
Okay. You want to hold the fire hose so the pain isn't spraying everywhere. We got it.
I hear.
You got it.
Okay. How can I give another analogy?
No, it made sense. I don't think you just need to physically articulate it.
Okay, how about a hot potato? A hot potato.
Hot potato.
I think of hot potatoes like pain. What I want to do with the hot potato is throw it onto you. When I feel pain, I want to be like, it's your fault. Take it. And so my goal is like, how do I learn to hold this hot potato and not throw it on you or run away screaming? But how do I learn how to feel my own pain and then articulate that in a healthy way? So that feels like something that's really important on the health journey is, what do I have power over and who is it that I want to become? And I kind of aimed for, I want to become a healthy attacher, a healthy communicator. I want to become healthy with boundaries so that I can live a fulfilling life. And if I become healthier in all of those ways, then you will either want to leave me because that's not fun for you. Or you will start to feel safe and want to join me in learning those skills. There will be a natural decision point that will happen if I grow in all of those skills. And I think that those skills take a long amount of time to learn boundaries, communication, and how to have your feelings in a healthy way. That can take you a while.
Well, going back to, you'd said, look, I can't escape me, myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I was mad at.
Yeah. And I
wanted to blame you.
Yeah. I wanted to blame you too.
Yeah.
And I couldn't escape me.
Yeah.
And I understood that. I was like, I'm going to find another one of her, and in order, like, it's just going to happen again because I'm going to need to complete this cycle inside of myself. And I think there was probably even a point of like, I want to complete this cycle. So if I do leave her, I find someone that's not her.
Yeah. No, I felt the same way. I want to become healthy so that I don't do this again.
Yeah.
If I do leave, I want the hope for a good future.
Yeah. So what was I saying about that? Becoming, what were we talking about? Goodness. ADD right there. You got me in that interruption.
I'm proud of us.
Yeah.
That we made it. But that's not everybody's story. So I want to validate people who are listening. There are a lot of you out there that if you go on the healing and growth process, eventually you will mirror safety to your partner in a way that will make safety feel enticing to them. Then there's another group of you that no matter how safe you are, no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you grow, your partner isn't going to meet you there. And that is where, like, I want to do the work I can on my own. And then I want to be self-aware. So as I'm doing my self-work and I'm growing, I need to not abandon myself. And I need to know if I'm hitting my wall and if we need to separate. I'm like, I have to be a regulated human to be safe for my partner. So if our relationship is so dysregulated, I've often recommended people in certain seasons separate to get their nervous systems back under control and then find a way to come back together.
That's good. I remembered what I wanted to say.
Great. I'm glad. I just fillered.
Yeah. You know, when we look at the process of facing ourselves internally, understanding like life. So a lot of times people are asking, when is the time that I get to divorce? When can I get out of this? What gives me reason to get out of this? All of these type of, it's the escapism out of it. Like, you're behaving in a way, I need a reason to be able to get out of this. And I'm like, first off, if you think that relationships should be perfect in the first place and you not have problems, then you've missed the point of relationship, really. And you've missed the point of life.
Yeah. Because it's messy.
Because it's messy. And you're searching for something that doesn't exist. Now, I understand that there are some relationships that naturally
are really toxic.
I wasn't going to say that. But yes, they are really toxic. I get it on that. But there's also relationships where there are people that are really compatible in ways that their temperaments are compatible. And you may see an easier tone to the way that they're exchanging. But a lot of times when you're taking people, not just with different temperaments, different cultures, different value systems, there's going to be the explosion. And really, that's the invitation to growth and development. So to me, I look at the partnership journey as something of like, this is here to liberate me into finding the things that my heart came to earth for in the first place. Like, I'm here on planet Earth because I want to discover and experience something. And to me, I looked at you and I's relationship. I'm like, this is not a waste. This is not something to be ran from. This is a gift, what's going on inside of this. So I'm going to embrace it.
Yeah.
But you have to have a mental shift. Like, you can either sit and say, my partner's not changing, this is so terrible, or my partner's not growing. What am I going to do about that? How is this throwing me forward? And how is this fulfilling something for this moment, however long this moment it lasts? Yeah. It's actually perpetuating a fulfillment of something that I long for, and I'm not even cognitive of it.
Yeah. And then I think about, I love that. And I want to balance the thing of know your own tendencies. So some of you out there are codependent and your tendency is to stay in relationships longer than you should. And some of you are out there and your tendency is escapism and you want to jump ship quickly. So you got to know, what is my relationship history and what does healing and growth look like for me personally? And I know for me, getting to the point where I thought I could divorce you if I need to was actually really important for me.
Yeah, it was healthy for me too.
Because of the deep codependency I came from. And so saying I can get out. And so that means I am choosing in for now. And it also means that I could feel like I don't have to be in this forever if this doesn't actually work.
Yeah. I had a running thought in my head. I'm here because I want to be here. After I said, I give myself permission to divorce her and walk out of this situation. I don't have to be here in this. Then I was like, okay, if I am here, it's by choice daily. And so every time that I felt powerless or something, I'm like, but I'm here because I'm choosing to be here.
Yeah.
So am I actually choosing it? Like in the sense of, am I choosing to engage it and make the most out of it? Or am I just pushing myself through a suffering process that's pointless because I'm not choosing to evolve and grow?
Yeah. Now, some of you are going to be like, I believe in commitment. I'm not going to leave my spouse. They don't want to change. It's been years. And a couple things that I think are really valuable is to make sure you have really great sources of love in your life. Because, and that's one thing that really helped us on our transformation processes that were different, is having outside people love
Community.
us, that we're not each other.
Yeah.
So we were still getting love needs met while we were bumping along. I think that was really helpful. I think purpose, like if your partner, purpose is very fulfilling. So if your partner is not growing and you don't feel that common connection, but you want to be with them forever, one thing you can do is get involved in something you feel a lot of purpose in, like go volunteer at a homeless shelter, like babysit some kids for the people across the street regularly, like find some purpose that feels fulfilling for you, even relationally and purpose vision wise. And then I think that personally, I think God was a huge shift for us when it felt like our partner wasn't changing, because it was like there was a safe place who loved me unconditionally. And that helped me learn to become more like love. Sometimes we need a safe, loving place to become more like love. And there's a lot of ways that I learned you couldn't meet all of my needs and you couldn't fulfill all of the things that I wanted. And I think that is really, really helpful for me to have other sources. And I think for you, that really changed our marriage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was a sense of feeling an expectancy or an expectation from you of, I need to be all these different things that I'm like, that's not realistic for me to be able to do all that. And it did. It was very relieving to me for me to be able to like tell you, I can't do that. I don't have capacity for that. And you'd be like, that's fine. Because I have community where I'm splitting my needs up. And on that point, I was going to say, like, our spouse isn't meant to be our source of life, our source of love. They're meant to be, I see it like this, like our source is like this ocean and all the people are like rivers that pour into this ocean, right? All the people are an expression of this love. And so to me, I'm like, oh yeah, well, you're meant to be a river. And it adds to me.
Yes.
It brings value. I like drinking from that. It fills up a portion of my experience. Yeah, I do. But for me, even when we went through some of our most difficult things, I was able to be like, she can go be batshit crazy for all I care. It is totally okay with me because I'm stabilized in these connections that I'm having where I'm letting their love land and I'm not living feeling abandoned and alone inside of that situation.
Yeah. With friends and God.
Yeah.
And it really did enable you to become more stable. Receiving love from both parts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because again, my anxiety didn't spike every time you were behaving in a manner that I perceived as disconnective or painful. I was like, okay, you can do this. Okay, we can have, I would say we had separation. We weren't separated out of this house, but there was levels of emotional separation of just like,
disconnection.
Okay, this disconnection I'm okay with. it most likely won't be permanent.
Yeah, totally.
But while it's happening, my anxiety isn't through the roof because I'm tending to myself well.
Yeah. And you were able to show up so much safer in relationship because you weren't getting angry at me and blaming me for all the ways I couldn't meet your needs.
Yeah, it's true.
And so I think we started to learn how to get a lot of our soul love needs met separately. And that is also a gift of your person not responding well, is it does enable you to engage healthy community around you more. Yeah.
I found that for a lot of people that were having these stressful times, as far
in
as
their relationships.
Yeah. When they were like, my partner won't change and I'm on a development track. Some of the most biggest stressors, like when I would investigate and ask like, well, are you going to these friends in all these ways? And they're like, no.
Yeah.
And I'm like, of course, this is going to be 10 million times worse. You're not having healthy bonds in these other areas.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it puts way too much pressure on one person to be the one person you share everything in your life with, that you're vulnerable with everything, that you vent with, that you want to fix your emotions, that you go to comfort for. That's way too much pressure that is stable for you, that provides for you. Like, it's just, that is so much. And so the gift of having somebody who's not growing is you can go back to letting go of some of the expectations. And what is it that they can meet? Yeah. And can I be thankful for that? And that is something that I do think that I held that through our process, that I was still thankful for the things you could be, even when I was in pain about the things that were really hurting me. Yeah. And I think that that's a really a good gift to be able to hold on to if you can in a relationship. Yeah.
That's great. Well, are we done? Are we done for today?
Yeah.
Abrasive done.
Abrasive done. If you're out there and you're in a relationship, we have Relationship Glue. It's a conflict course that you can send this podcast to your spouse and say, let's not get separated. Here's a course. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. But the other thing is, we didn't even mention this, so I'm so glad. I think a huge step is asking somebody to do counseling with you.
Yeah.
Asking them to do a marriage program with you. Asking them to do regular dates with you. One of the biggest problems in growth is that you get disconnected. And so what is it that you can connect on? Yeah. Can you connect on games? Can you connect on TV shows? Can you connect on activities like bowling? Like, still pour into the areas that you connect on so that you're not only seeing the areas you disconnect on. And then also, I think it's so important that you're seeing a counselor and then you are inviting them and giving, if your partner doesn't want to, you can always say, if you want to find a counselor, I'd be happy to meet you in that too.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I can't believe we didn't even mention trying to get them into counseling.
Yeah.
I think that's an important step.
Yeah, it's a great invitation. And I think when you made the point of like, I think you made a point of like, you find a counselor and I'll go with you to whoever you want to go to.
Yeah.
But can we go to counseling? Even that's a great one that says, hey, it's not going to be on my terms either. I'll go your way. That's great.
So I kind of see it as steps like go on your own personal health journey, find ways to connect, see if they'll go to a counselor with you. I have so many people message me about their relationships on Instagram and they'll tell me wild things. And I'll be like, have you guys seen a counselor together? And they'll be like, no. And I'll be like, first steps. They're like, should we leave or should we stay? Or do you think we can work through this or not? I'm like, I don't know. You should see a counselor.
Yeah.
Start there.
Get professional help.
Yes.
All right.
And I do think, last thing, some things you need to say are a big enough deal that if they won't do counseling with you, then you need to separate.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. You guys figure that out on your own.
Yeah.
What
Also,
that line is.
We take no liability for your relationships and choices that you make after listening to this podcast.
So here's the deal. If you enjoyed the podcast, rate, review, subscribe, and share. Head to YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell button,
Ding.
Subscribe on iTunes podcast if you're over there, or Spotify. We're on all those.
Share is the best too.
Yep.
That's how a lot of people find it. Somebody shared it.
Yep. We so appreciate you spending time with us.
Hope this helped.
I'm done. I'm going to go get an In-N-Out burger. I'm hungry. I'm hungry.